Good Monday morning. It is April 13th, just 2 more days, and taxes are due coming up Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. We're back to work this week, and you found us here at the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We broadcast from the 13 News Now studios in Norfolk, Virginia, serving Southeast Virginia and Northeast North Carolina. But here on the Weather Desk, we cover today's top weather headlines all across the country and oftentimes around the world, to space, beyond, climate, all kinds of interesting topics here on the Weather Desk. Let's show you what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we've got a weekend weather wrap-up. There have been different types of weather all across the country. We're going to focus on a number of those things, including more excessive rainfall for Hawaii. Then we're going to turn our attention to Oregon, where they are working to prevent wildfires. Again, it's out ahead of the wildfire season, but there have been many parts of Oregon that are experiencing drought, very dry conditions out west. So they're taking steps now to try to get ahead of the upcoming fire season. We'll talk about that. As we take a look in New York State, around Rochester, we're following up on a story we brought you. I think it was early last week. There was a young couple, a husband and his young wife, and she's expecting a child. Their home is teetering on the edge of where there was a pretty big landslide, and the insurance company's saying, hey, that's not covered. And the city's like, well, it's private land. That's not covered. Everybody's saying, well, that's not covered. Meanwhile, this young family, I think they also have another small child, they're about to potentially lose their house if they don't stop the landslides. We'll update you on their story, show you what the community is trying to do to help them out. Of course, Friday night, we had that, as they've termed it, a picture-perfect or textbook splashdown landing for Artemis II. Incredible to have our astronauts back, and everything went great. So they're back. We'll give you an update on what they had to say over the weekend, and then we're going to look ahead with the next steps for the Artemis program, what's coming up with Artemis 3 and Artemis 4. We've got a little bit of insight that we'll share with you. In addition to that, you know, we've got some hot weather in our forecast here in Hampton Roads. We're going to be flirting with 90 degrees. It kind of got us thinking, okay, so when does ORF, or Norfolk International, the official reporting gauge for Norfolk, when does Norfolk usually start hitting 90? How early in the year? My colleague Hunter Forst will have a look at that. And we've got the work week weather outlook. We're going to talk about just how hot it's going to get. We're going to talk about severe storm threats across the country. And there's one part of the country that could get hit for multiple days. So we'll break that down for you, and we'll talk about our next chances for rain here in Hampton Roads. We're going to start off this morning with different parts of the country are experiencing different types of severe weather. Reed Binion reports.
I think there was a lot of anxiety going into it. I think we've all learned a lot of lessons on what we can do to prepare for each storm.
A powerful multi-day storm continued to lash Hawaii with heavy rain into the weekend, triggering flood alerts in a state still recovering from destructive floods in March. This recent storm dumping more than a month's worth of rain on parts of Hawaii.
Every little drop is a little scary on what's going to happen next.
In Colorado, a very different weather-related issue, not enough water.
Record low snowpacks combined with record-breaking warmth.
We're at 41% of our historical average snow water equivalents.
Drought conditions in the state prompting water conservation efforts. Officials and experts warning things could get worse as we head into the warmer months.
Pattern right now is drought. So we are gearing up for a summer of drought.
Georgia also facing worsening drought conditions.
And that's almost like a brick. I mean, that's just hard Georgia red clay, and it is super dry.
According to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor, 98% of the state is experiencing some level of drought, causing concern among farmers during planting season.
It's almost like running a big piece of sandpaper over it. It's so dry.
And while spring may have started weeks ago, parts of California are still experiencing wintry conditions, including a winter storm warning over the weekend and heavy snowfall in the Sierras.
And this year was really weird. It's like snow melts, snow melts.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
All right, I want to take you out to Hawaii again. I was just checking with the National Weather Service Office and Hawaiian Emergency Management. They still have flood watches up for Hawaii. So this area continuing to see rain, and there's more rain in the forecast as this moisture continues to stream in. A bit of an atmospheric river here pouring in over Hawaii. So more moisture to come. They do have flood watches up for all but the Big Island. The Big Island not included in the watches, but the rest of them are, and the potential is there, obviously, for additional issues with runoff and some flooding. So they do have emergency shelters open, and that was as of last evening through the overnight. That watch continues until 6 a.m. Hawaiian time. So we've got a while yet, but they've been dealing with the rain, and unfortunately, they have more rain in the forecast. And not only that, you remember we talked last week about the developing chances for an El Nino later this year. It's very likely we will see an El Nino developing. That is the anticipation. And with an El Nino, we could see some more tropical development eventually, not yet, but eventually in the Pacific. So some of those storm systems, while we have a break in the tropics on the Atlantic side, an El Nino can spawn more activity in the Pacific, especially the eastern Pacific. Some of those systems can eventually threaten Hawaii. So they've been having a tough go since March, and we're going to continue to watch and keep you updated on how Hawaii fares over the coming months and through the hurricane season, obviously. Now, in addition to that, we mentioned how dry it's been in Georgia. They continue to be very dry down across the southeast. You'll get a glimpse at the drought monitor in just a moment, but you can see this morning they're still dry. There is some unsettled weather, though, that is forming. A few showers out to the west here in the mid-Atlantic. We continue to be dry. We need the rain here in Hampton Roads as well. It's been dry out west. As you take a look at the radar and the satellite images, you could, or I should say the radar images, you can see a little rain-snow mix over eastern portions of Oregon and western Idaho, up into northern Idaho and back into southeast Washington state, back across Montana, some showers back into Minnesota, and some more scattered wet weather through the Ohio River Valley and up into the northeast. Now, when we take a look at the drought monitor, again, you'll notice how dry it is South Georgia into Florida. And we just heard from Reed's report that 98% of Georgia is experiencing some level of drought. So this is a serious situation there. Of course, we've talked about just how incredibly dry it's been out west. And I want to take you to Oregon now. You'll notice this band of severe drought from north of Medford all the way up to the northeast part of Oregon. The National Guard spent the weekend helping local first responders prevent future wildfires this season. Jake Holter has the story.
There has not been a fuels mitigation like this done before.
Along the Mount Scott Nature Trail in Happy Valley, crews are trying to get ahead of potential wildfires.
Right next to the homes is where we're focusing.
Clackamas Fire Wildland Operations Division Chief Brent Olson describes the process.
What we're doing is taking a lot of the heavier fuels and removing those so we can keep the fire intensity, if there's a fire here, low and on the ground where firefighters like myself can go in and suppress the fire.
That big one?
Happy Valley enlisting the help of a couple dozen Oregon National Guard troops to help clear the forest floor.
Giving back to the communities is the main reason why they're here, and this is a big task, and they're excited to be here.
And the troops aren't the only ones excited. A local resident we spoke with culling the brush is glad to have reinforcements.
This is fantastic. We've needed it for a long time, and so I'm really happy to see the city stepping up and putting together a project like this. I hope there's more in the future.
This project made possible by a $65,000 wildlife risk reduction grant from the State Fire Marshal's office. Chief Olson shows us the progress made so far.
When we started the project, this is a very good representation of what we were dealing with at the start. But as you can see, as we move to the left here, we open up the spacing, we limb a little bit of the foliage up without taking away from the view shed of both the nature park but also the adjacent homeowners.
Olson also calling on homeowners to do their part to prevent wildfires from spreading.
Mitigate the things that can be done. It doesn't mean eliminating all the trees or shrubbery around your house. What it means is think about how a fire might move through and steps you can take to better protect your own home.
All of that very important information to get out. And again, they're taking steps now given how dry it is there. Now, down in California, they're actually doing better than they have in past years, but they're still going to be watching the wildfire season. I wanted to point out a couple of other areas that I have even more concern for. The southwest part of Idaho, you can see extreme to exceptional drought there. Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake Valley into the eastern portions of Utah. Beautiful country out there. Bone dry up around Vernal right now. Extreme drought. And then look at northwest Colorado, Aspen, Vail, Steamboat Springs, these areas all under exceptional drought. So again, the wildfire concerns greater in those areas that have been lacking moisture, and then again down in the southeast, as we mentioned. Now, in addition to these stories about a lack of water, we've had some areas that have seen a little bit too much, and that led to a landslide that we talked about near Rochester, New York. So last week, we told you about a landslide that's threatening a home, one in particular in this neighborhood. Homeowners say they are still struggling to get help in preventing further damage. Natalie Calzettoni reports.
It's been more than a week since Cardi Rynn and her family were forced to leave their Irondequoit home after noticing a massive landslide in their backyard.
It was intense, stressful, just getting out of the house for our safety.
The land behind two homes on Carl Sam Drive shifted April 1st following severe weather, and it is now less than 10 feet away from Rynn's foundation.
Been waiting, trying to figure out the answers, hearing people out. No one's telling us.
Rynn and her neighbor, Tessa Stafford, say there has been limited assistance from government officials. The state deemed the land private property, and homeowners insurance likely won't cover losses. As of Friday, both families applied for an emergency fill permit through the town to take matters into their own hands.
It is going to be costly. You expect things to happen with your house, and you have money set aside for that, but this is so far beyond what we ever could have planned for.
Stafford tells me she is expecting and hopes to bring her baby into a safe home come October.
It's been a lot of extra strain that we were not expecting, but I also hope that it raises awareness for people in the community of, as the weather gets more extreme, this could happen to you, and is there a plan in place to protect us from this going forward?
Stafford and Rynn say community support has been a silver lining. Roofing Rochester stopped by to reroute the drainage from the back of the house.
We're happy that the community reached out to us.
People we've never met before are willing to step in and help us in ways that government has failed us.
Incredible to see that landslide so close to those homes. Again, we'll continue to follow that story. One thing everybody was following over the weekend, the return of Artemis II. They are safely back at home. But you might be wondering, what's next for the Artemis program? Well, the crew members are back at home. They're reunited with their families, and they got a standing ovation on Saturday during their first joint appearance in Houston. Now we're learning more about Artemis III mission, which is set to launch next year. Here's ABC's Jacqueline Lee.
The Artemis II crew welcomed back to Earth with standing ovations and emotional reunions with their loved ones. Pilot Victor Glover Jr.'s daughter Maya posting this tribute video on social media, captioned, "Welcome back, Dad. Welcome back, crew." And Commander Reed Weissman sharing this photo with his two daughters, Ellie and Katie, and the caption, "Mission complete." The four astronauts speaking out for the first time since that textbook splashdown off the coast of Southern California, reflecting on their nearly 700,000-mile journey around the moon.
No one down here is ever going to know what the four of us just went through, and it was the most special thing that will ever happen in my life.
And tonight, NASA looking ahead to Artemis III, set to launch in 2027. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman announcing a big change in late February. The mission of Artemis III is to stay in Earth's orbit.
We will endeavor to rendezvous in low Earth orbit with one or both of our lunar landers, test out integrated operations between Orion and the landers.
The crew of Artemis III will test capabilities between the Orion spacecraft and the private commercial spacecraft needed to land astronauts on the moon, part of NASA's ambitious plan for Artemis IV.
This was a test flight to study things like the effects of microgravity gravity and space radiation and tight physical spaces on these astronauts for a long period. And they collected data on all of that that's going to affect how they plan out these future Artemis missions.
Artemis 4, set to launch in 2028, will mark humanity's return to the moon, with 2 crew members descending to the lunar surface and spending about a week near the moon's south pole. Jacqueline Lee, ABC News, Los Angeles.
So exciting. So 2027, kind of hanging closer to Earth, working on rendezvous with the lunar landers. And then the next one, all things go well, humans back on the moon. Really, really exciting. Well, we're going to come back and take a really quick break. Want to let you know, after the break, we're going to talk about spring feeling a lot more like summer. Temperatures are ticking up across Hampton Roads in the Mid-Atlantic. Your work week outlook, and when we typically hit 90. That could happen. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. All right, temperatures in Hampton Roads are ticking back up. As I mentioned, spring is going to feel a lot more like summer this week. We could even hit 90 degrees by Wednesday. It's going to be close. Meteorologist Hunter Force has a look at when this region typically sees its first 90-degree day.
When it comes to hitting 90 degrees here in Norfolk, the average first occurrence typically arrives around May 11th. But in recent years, we've been getting a taste of summer much earlier. In 2025, the first 90-degree day showed up on April 6th, and in 2024, it wasn't far behind, arriving on April 15th. But compare that to 2023, when we had to wait all the way until July 1st to reach that mark. Now, once summer settles in, 90-degree days can really stack up. In fact, the longest streak on record dates back to 1995, when temperatures hit 90 degrees for 26 consecutive days from July into August. And it's not just a summer phenomenon. Even April has seen its share of heat. Back in 1960, we recorded 4 straight days at or above 90 degrees. So as we head into the next few weeks, the question becomes, will we see another early arrival of 90-degree heat, or will it hold off a little longer this year? For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Hunter Forst.
There is a very real chance we're going to hit 90 as we go through the middle of the week. Take a look at the 10-day outlook here. This is one of the models, and you can see how those temperatures are flirting with that on Wednesday. So today we're going to be around 84 degrees. Tomorrow, 86, up to 89 on Wednesday, within a degree of the record high, which happens to be 90 on Wednesday. The record high for Thursday, 91. And right now, the model's kind of hinting it may edge back just a skosh with maybe a few more clouds across the area cutting that sun. That would set us back a degree or so. Then as we get into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, mid-80s. But clearly, this run of weather is going to be a warm one before things cool down Monday into Tuesday. Temperatures back below average, and then another warming trend after that. Our average high this time of year is 69 degrees in Norfolk. So this upcoming run of weather, the days today through next Sunday, this 7-day stretch, is going to be a hot one. Let's talk about the other kind of side of this, what we need, some moisture, and we don't have good chances for rain anytime soon. Much of Hampton Roads under moderate drought. It's dry across the peninsula out to the west. Surrey County back out through Petersburg. This area again pushed into that dry category with the most recent drought monitor update. Moderate drought from the eastern shore over to the middle peninsula. That's for Northampton. You get up to Accomack on the eastern shore, across the northern neck, and south of the Albemarle Sound, you have severe drought. And then you have extreme drought between Rocky Mount and Roanoke Rapids. So when do we see a chance for rain? Well, as we take a look ahead, not today, not tomorrow, Wednesday or Thursday. A low risk, mainly off to the north and west on Friday. And I don't think we're going to see anything in the metro. Saturday's going to be dry. Then on Sunday, we finally have isolated to maybe scattered wet weather. Doesn't look like a tremendous amount of rain either, but at least there's a front coming through. And it's possible things may trend a little bit wetter there with that front coming through. But at this point, that's our best shot at rain over the coming week. Of course, I'll have a lot more for you on that in just a minute when we get into our models in the Futurecast. It's going to be wetter than normal in the central U.S., a little more moisture for the northwest. As we mentioned, I think Oregon will welcome that additional moisture. Looking along the southeast coast, this is an area that needs rain, still dry. The southeast coast down into Florida, and here in the mid-Atlantic on up through the northeast U.S., the major metropolitan cities to the north, pretty much close to average as far as rainfall. That's the 8 to 14-day outlook. Temperatures still warm, really coast to coast. You can see that. Everybody expected to be above normal when you average all the high and low temperatures and compare that to normal. We're going to be on the warm side, certainly above normal for the southeast along the Gulf Coast and here in the mid-Atlantic. We'll find the warm weather continuing. So through the end of April, looking like this is going to be a hot one when all's said and done across this month, this 2026, hot April. All right, again, across the country, we've got some areas of precipitation. Nothing real dramatic. These showers earlier were a little heavier. They're kind of fizzling out as they near Shreveport. And you can see center there also picking up some light to moderate showers at eastern part of Texas. We've got a storm system kind of moving along here. Nothing major here, just some scattered showers. It is warm enough for rain up in that area. As we look back across the upper tier of the U.S., right along the Montana-Canadian border there, some showers, a little bit of mixed precipitation as well. Right now, just some spotty precip across parts of Wyoming, back along the Oregon coast, the state line with Idaho, and then back into Washington and northern Idaho. They've got some wet weather and some snow for the higher country. Along the Washington coast, a few sprinkles. But I want to talk to you more about this area here, because while there's nothing threatening at this moment, I want to show you the outlook calls for stronger storms to develop kind of along this frontal boundary right here. Again, cooler weather to the north, warm and humid air down to the south, and right there along that frontal boundary, this is where we have a level 3 or enhanced risk of severe storms. The area shaded in yellow, that's a level 2 or slight risk, and then you see that level 1 threat expands out farther. Now, when you talk about the tornado potential, here we're getting into that third elevated tier, and EF2 tornadoes or greater possible. So there could be a few stronger tornadoes from portions of Wisconsin back across southern Minnesota, from Minneapolis down through La Crosse over to Green Bay, this whole area needs to stay very weather aware as the setup is there to produce some stronger tornadoes. Lower risk down across Texas and Oklahoma. We'll keep an eye to that as well. Greatest potential for strong winds up across the north central U.S. and there's chances for larger hail, especially the same area along that frontal boundary I just showed you. This is the area that really needs to watch. Now tomorrow you see it shifts just a little bit, but man, Wisconsin's still under the gun here. Less of a threat across Minnesota, but now you've got that enhanced threat, including Chicago. And when we talk about the tornado potential, the Windy City up through Milwaukee, Madison, Dubuque, back through Davenport, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, and Des Moines. So much of Iowa needs to be very much aware. And then, of course, northern Illinois. And you talk about that increased tornado threat into a major metropolitan area like Chicago. We'll be watching that. Oklahoma City kind of on the edge. That extends out through Elk City and down to the south through Childress. You can see a level 2 threat extends all the way down to the Mexican border. Wind also an issue, and then that threat of larger hail again, Chicago up through Green Bay or Milwaukee, and then back out to central portions of Iowa. And then you look ahead to Wednesday. Guess what? Here we go again. Today, tomorrow, Wednesday, this area again under the gun. So we'll need to keep a close eye to that. In addition, excessive rainfall for Michigan and Wisconsin today. That threat of excessive rainfall across the central U.S. for the next couple of days. We remain dry here, kind of left out. All right, our pollen is up across the region. Again, tree pollen continues to be very high to extreme. Grass pollen continues to be moderate. Over the coming weeks, tree pollen will start to go down. Grass pollen will go up. Temperatures are warmer than they were 24 hours ago. We're already in the upper 60s. So a warm day. Temperatures today topping out into the mid 80s. Small craft advisory on the Chesapeake Bay due to the gustier winds. Beautiful live look at the ocean front as we pick up the future cast. You can see things are pretty quiet right now across the area. Temperatures climbing, and the heat is going to be with us through the week and into the upcoming weekend. Our next chances for showers are going to come late on Sunday afternoon and evening. On Monday, we'll clear it out and cool it down. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast. Again, tax day near the record high, staying hot, mid-80s into the weekend, and that chance for rain coming up later on Sunday. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. Again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We'll continue to keep you updated on all of this. Have a great day.